Welcome to another episode of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I am your host, Michael. Along with me again this week is my co-host, Ken. How you doing, Ken?
How you doing?
Hanging in there, man. Hanging in there. For those who are new to the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, our motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When boxing is bad, we will talk about it. The bottom line is, if it concerns boxing, we will talk about it. There are a couple places that you can go to find information on the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. You can go to the official blog page of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. The link for that is P4P, boxingreport.wordpress.com. Let me repeat that, P4P, boxingreport.wordpress.com. You can also go to the podcast page. The link for that is p4p.boxingreport.podomatic.com. And repeat that, P4P, boxingreport.podomatic.com. On both the blog page and the podcast page, you can find past episodes of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report podcast, and as well as the YouTube show. And on the blog page, you can not only find that, but you can find articles written by yours truly. Matter of fact, I just wrote an article today concerning the Andre War, so please check that out. Be a friend, be a pal, be a buddy. Check that out. Also, on both pages, you can find information on where to find the Pound for Pound Boxing Report all over the internet, all over social media, on Facebook, on Google+, on YouTube, on Tumblr, Twitter, the email address for the show, Pinterest. We have a Pinterest board, the RSS feed for the podcast and for the blog, as well as a link to donate your account. And be a friend, be a pal, be a buddy. Donate your Twitter account. The address for that is donateyouraccount.com/P4P Boxing Report. Let me repeat that, donateyouraccount.com/P4P Boxing Report. And what happens is that any tweet that comes from the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page, and the link and the address for the Twitter page is at P4P Boxing Report, at P4P Boxing Report. What happens is any tweet that comes from the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page, your Twitter account, should you donate your account, any tweet that comes from the Pound for Pound Report Twitter page, your Twitter address, your Twitter account will be able to retweet any tweet that comes from the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page. So again, be a friend, be a pal, be a buddy. Donate your Twitter account and show your love for us, show your love for the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, and show your love for a couple of dudes who like talking that boxing-ish. With that being said, let's get the show started by doing a recap of last weekend's actions. Headlined by a triple header that took place on Showtime at the StubHub Center in Carson, California. Main event of that Showtime triple header was Keith Thurman, interim welterweight champion, interim WBA welterweight champion, fighting the tough, rugged Juan Diaz, who was a former lightweight champion. Diaz had a couple of good, tough fights with IBF champion Sean Porter, who recently overwhelmed Paulie Malignaggi, destroyed him, looked very impressive, and also gave Amir a very tough fight last year. And in this instance, that wasn't the case, as Thurman set the pace early, took the initiative early, ended up stopping Diaz in round 3, kind of a controversial fashion. But I'm going to go to you, Kent. Talk about the fight itself, the kind of controversial conclusion as Diaz corner stopped the fight because of an injured rib, and your impressions of Thurman. How did he look in comparison to Amir Khan and especially Sean Porter?
I thought he looked good, but at the same time, it wasn't as impressive as his last few performances. I think certainly he came out early and set a good pace. I mean, he showed, his blazing hand speed and his power. But at the same time, I felt Julio Diaz before the end of the fight, he was holding his own. He was having moments in that fight where he was able to land against on Thurman. I mean, not big punches, not big shots, but moments where he was able to land and be effective, especially in round 3. The first 2 rounds were really all Thurman. I really thought he set the pace. He used his hand speed, the power. I mean, he got off to a great start. He dropped Diaz in round 2 with a body shot, delayed body shot. It was a delayed reaction to it. But in round 3,
I believe he also dropped him with the. Did he drop him with the right hand as well?
Yeah, it was the right hand and then the body shot, and then he just went down from the body shot, I think. or it was the body shot and then the right hand,
Yeah.
and then he went down. It was like a delayed reaction to the I believe both the body. Well, I think it was more the body shot that was the delayed reaction because the right hand came right after it, and then all of a sudden he took a knee. But in round 3, it seemed like Diaz came out with a little bit more purpose. He was a little bit more aggressive. Yeah, the hand speed was and the power was still, was evident, with Thurman, and he still had, and he was still showing that he was quicker and he hit a lot harder than Diaz. But Diaz was having moments in that round. I mean, it wasn't enough to take the round, obviously, but I was expecting before the stoppage that we were in for the long haul. We were in for a very interesting fight, after what I saw in round 3. And then the fight was stopped due to the rib injury. I believe that rib injury occurred towards the end of the 3rd round when Thurman landed another body shot. And I'll tell you, he landed some pretty nasty body shots on Diaz in the course of the abbreviated fight, and he was able to show his hand speed and he showed everything that he did show in the prior 2 fights. But I felt, even though he won the 3 rounds, I just felt like the way it ended and the fact that Diaz was showing in round 3 that he was in the fight. It kind of was an abbreviated conclusion. I think Thurman would have won the fight. I think he probably would have won by a later round stoppage or a decision. But I didn't feel like Diaz was terribly hurt by his shots. I think he was a little. I think Diaz was a little bit more. It was going to be a sterner test than I think people originally thought, and I think we saw signs of that in round 3, but we never got to see the rest of the fight due to the rib injury.
See, for me, I pushed back a little bit. I thought he was a little bit more impressive than you're giving credit for, and maybe it's because I kind of doubted the ability of Thurman early. I was impressed by not just the hand speed, but the leg movement. A year ago or so, with Thurman, when I watched him, I didn't see it. I think he's getting better and better as a fighter. He showed that particularly in the first 2 rounds. The body shots were wicked. I think he made a very good use of the jab, and I think for me, he showed some counterpunching ability that I didn't see with him in the past. That made me cause for pause and say, whoa, this guy is getting really better. He's more than just a puncher. I mean, he's been shown in recent fights, but he didn't show it to the extent I think he did in this fight. With that being said, I believe you're right. I think that Diaz was really warming up in round 3. He came out with fire. He led his own body shots to Thurman and shot to the head as well. But again, because of the rib injury, which I think as well will suffer late in the round, his corner decided to call it a day. Moving forward with Thurman, a lot of speculation that should Sean Porter beat Kell Brook in his mandatory defense, that that Porter and Thurman may fight a unification bout with each other in the ring. They asked Thurman about that after the fight, and he said he said that while he respects Porter, he's a good friend, that he would be open to it. Your thoughts on that potential bout, and do you think that between Thurman and Porter, who is the guy to be the next guy following the eventual, I ain't going to say eventual fall, but let's just put it like this. Mayweather and Pacquiao, they're eventually they don't have too many fights in them. So it's obvious that Thurman and Porter are next to available guys to make the step up. So your thoughts on the potential of a Thurman Porter bout, and between those 2 fighters, who do you see as the guy who's going to be the next guy at welterweight?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I think for some reason, even though that it was due to the abbreviated fight, I really want to see Thurman in another couple fights before I see him even get in the ring with Porter. I just got the sense that even though he showed a lot of impressive things, I don't know if he's ready yet. Just call me crazy. I just don't know if he's completely there yet. But
based on what specifically?
I just saw some things that I think he needed to work on. Like, I think at times Thurman has this habit of, admiring his work, and then he like, especially against Diaz, like he would land an impressive flurry, and counterpunch effect, and then he would just look, and then Diaz would come back and hit him. Like, that's something I think he needs to work on. I think he can't fall in love with what he's doing. Like, especially against a guy like Diaz, like a guy that's really, really like savvy and gritty, and he's been there before, and he's fought at that level. And I think, personally, I think Thurman, even though he's becoming a little bit too cocky, which is a good thing, I think, to sell himself. I think that's great. You want to become cocky a little bit, show more of a personality. That's wonderful. But I also think he's maybe becoming a little too cocky. I think he's falling in love with his, is like he's improved his skill greatly in the last year or two, but at the same time, I think there's more for him to grow, and I think I'm a little worried that he may be becoming comfortable with his current skill set, and he feels like that's going to carry him all the way through. And I just think that's the wrong attitude to have. That being said, I really, really think I like the idea of a Porter fight between him and Thurman, but I don't think it should be this year. I would wait a couple more fights, maybe do it in 2015. I think that it would be a nice build up. I think Thurman could work on some things in the next couple of fights, and then they can make that fight. And I'm all for it. I want to see it. I think it would be a great fight. If you could personally ask me right now, I would give the edge to Porter simply because he's a little bit more of a complete fighter. He has different dimensions. He knows how he's more comfortable with his skill set.
When you mention Thurman and his sometimes habit of admiring his work, do you think that would be problematic against a guy like Sean Porter, who, if one thing you can say about him, one of the many things you can say about him, that he's way more consistent. In terms of his output, in terms of he's always in your face.
Yeah, and listen, if Thurman thinks he can admire his work against Porter, he has another thing coming. Porter is always on you. He will make you pay for any little mistake, and he's more comfortable in the skill set, and he's more consistent with his skill set. We see flashes of what Thurman can do, and he's improving. And don't get me wrong, I think he's one of the most improved fighters in the sport in the last couple of years. But saying that, I think he still has room to grow. I think he can. I think he can be a I think he can be a top welterweight, and I think he is now. But I think he can even get better. I think Porter will be a top welterweight. I don't know where they're going to stand when Mayweather and Pacquiao retire, but I will say this: I think they're going to be major players in the division right now and in the foreseeable future. I don't see where those guys would be below the top 10. I can't. I just can't see them being below the top 10. I even see both of them being in the top 5 or even top 3 because I still think both guys are improving. I don't think we've seen the best of either one of these guys yet. So I'm looking forward to the fight, but I think it should come in like 2015.
Absolutely. While Thurman Julio Diaz was the main event, the undercard bout featuring Lucas Matthysse making his return to the ring following his loss to Danny Garcia, his return to the ring against John Molina. That was the fight of the night. It really stole the show. Matthysse, like I said, coming off of a loss to Danny Garcia, which not only he lost, he suffered a broken nose, had all kinds of trouble early. Molina stepping up in weight, hurt Matthysse in round 1, put him down in round 2, caused two cuts on Matthysse's face, one on his face and I believe another one around the ear area. in round 3, I believe it was. The first half of the bout, um, even though Matthysse was throwing more of the shots, to my surprise, when it came to the power punching advantage, it seemed to be Molina. But over time, uh, Matthysse steadied himself. He found his bearings, and eventually he had a big time round 7, round 8, another big round 9, and eventually, I think the size can't, and the fact that Matthysse can punch as well, the fact that Molina is a smaller fighter, and even and the consistency of Matthysse at the end of the day proved its toll as he eventually wore out Molina, stopping him in round 11. In looking at this fight, give your assessment of the fight, and my question is, so far in 2014, do you consider this fight fight of the year so far? Because this was a heck of a bout, back and forth action, had the crowd on his feet, had Twitter, had Facebook all on his feet, talking about how good this fight was. The assessment of your fight in terms of how is it ranked so far as being the best fight of the year so far, what do you think?
It was the best fight of the year so far. I'll tell you this. We got to see Lucas Matthysse fight somebody that's just like him.
Mm-hmm.
A guy that can punch and a guy that comes forward and doesn't back down. And that was the first time we've really ever seen him with a guy like that. And we seen him face, like we saw it in the Garcia fight, we seen him face adversity. And he didn't do too well. Saturday night was a complete opposite. He was knocked down twice. In the second round, he was hurt. That was the first. He wasn't hurt against Garcia. That was more of a balance shot. This time he was hurt. That was the first time I'd ever seen him hurt. I mean, really hurt. That was the first time I ever seen him hurt.
And Matthysse has fought some guys who can really pop.
Yeah, right. And he's fought some guys that can punch a little bit, but not the power of Molina. Molina is shown that he's probably the hardest hitter at 140, simply because, to me, he seemed like his shots did more damage, like they were more hurtful. But as the fight went on, Matthysse's output, because he would land cleaner shots, over time he wore Molina down. Not saying he can't punch, I just think Molina's more the power puncher. Even though Matthysse can punch, I think if he can't get you out of there early with his big punches, he will wear you down. Because he has the type of snap on his shots. He does have power, but I think he has a lot of snappy punches as well. So not all of them are full blunt force power shots, but at the same time they do damage over a course of a fight. I mean, I definitely think Matthysse is a puncher, but he's more of the wear down type of puncher. Like, yeah, he has 33 knockouts in his 35 wins. But a lot of the knockouts he scored were against overmatched guys in Argentina and guys that don't take the best of punches here in the U.S. But he's shown when he has stepped up in competition that he can wear a guy down over a long haul and then stop them late. And I think that's more of what Matthysse is. He's more of a guy that will land a bunch of punches, sharp punches, not necessarily the most heaviest shots in the world, but over a time he can break you down and stop you, late in a fight. And I think that's what we're going to see more of him doing with the step up in competition. But I think Molina, he carried his power up to 140. I think he's carried it even more so than I thought. And I don't think he's necessarily a smaller guy at 140. I just think that he simply doesn't have defense at all. And if you're able to land on him enough, like Matthysse was able to, you'll knock him out because he has no defense. He all he knows is come forward and try to hurt you. And I'll tell you this, Matthysse showed some different things in this fight. He showed he's not just a quote unquote one punch guy, like I'm saying now. He showed he can jab, he can go to the body, but I think a lot of that too was with a willing dance partner. And that always helps. But I'd love to see if he jabs and goes to the body against a faster guy. If he can maintain that type of style against a faster guy, because that was improvement. That was something that we hadn't seen before out of Matthysse. And I think him going to the body early really set the tone for later in the fight. He laid a lot of early good groundwork to the body early, which helped him able to get the stoppage later on in the fight and to wear Molina down. That was a very smart game plan by Matthysse to go to the body, because not a lot of guys, realize that that's how you can get to Molina. You got to get to his body. You got to wear him down, and then you can take him out. And I think that was a very, very important thing in the fight. Also, I thought from the first round, I thought it was a very close round. I actually gave the round to Matthysse, but I could see why people would give it to Molina, because Molina landed that one shot that hurt him. If for the first 5 or 6 rounds it was a back and forth type of fight, you had the 2 knockdowns by Molina, the legit one in the second round, but then in the one in I believe in the 5th round, that was a punch behind the head. I don't think that was a clean shot. I don't think that really hurt Matthysse, but Pat Russell was in such a position that he couldn't tell if that was a clean shot. I know somebody who actually went to the fight and said that you could actually hear that punch. But he said he didn't really blame the referee because of the angle he was at. And when you see a shot like that and a fighter goes down, of course you're going to score it a knockdown. But I'm not going to really blame the ref for that one. That was just a tough call to make. And he made the call that he felt was best. And most refs would have called that a knockdown. But then after that, from that point on, it seemed like Matthysse went into another gear. He really stepped it up. He went to the body. He went up to the head. He just really put – it seemed like his work rate went up between round 6, 7, 8, 9, and then when he stopped Molina, it just seemed like his work rate went up as the fight went on. Early in the fight, he did have work rate, but it wasn't as pronounced as it was later in the fight. He was much busier later on in the fight when Molina slowed down and he was able to stand in front of Matthysse. I think Matthysse, for what it's worth, he showed improvement. I mean, everybody's back high on him again, which is, I think, a good thing, because I think a lot of people drew him over the, they drew him under the bridge after the Garcia performance. But he showed that he can make adjustments and win fights in a different way. And I think that's what he showed Saturday, but I want to see him do it against a faster guy.
Not only did he make adjustments in the ring, I liked the fact that he showed some mental strength, because that was my big question about Matthysse coming into this fight. How would he look? How would he look moving forward mentally? The way he lost to Danny Garcia, given how he was, to many, the favorite coming in, the way he just got thoroughly outboxed and even outfought when Garcia stood there and fought with him. I want to look quickly at the future. I want to bypass Matthysse for a second, talk about John Molina. Even though he lost, he kind of won, because with that kind of performance, he's going to have some big fights in the future. What do you think should be his move more going forward? Do you think he should move back down to 135, seek a potential fight with Omar Figueroa, and we will talk about his pedestrian performance in a little bit? Or do you think he should stay at 140 and try to seek a big fight there, possibly with the likes of Danny Garcia?
I think his future's at 140. I think he could possibly move down to 135, but there's not many fights there, not many big fights anyway. The bigger fights are going to probably be at 140, and he'll probably even move up to 147, because he's a big guy. He can carry that weight really, really well. And I think, you know, that I think he's gonna probably get a big fight at 140. I think this hasn't the last we've heard of him at all. I think he's won a lot of fans for showing his toughness and his grit. And he took a beating took a beating and still kept coming. Look at round 10. They're ready to stop the fight. He said, no, I'm fighting. And he came out in round 10. He got hurt. He got pummeled, and he got dropped, and he stopped the fight. He went out on his terms.
All the heart in the world.
All the heart in the world in that fight. He took a beating. 7, 8, 9, and the beginning of round 10, he took an absolute thumping. The punch stat numbers were absolutely one-sided, completely one-sided. If you've seen the punch stats, it was absolutely one-sided. But he showed a lot of heart. He showed a lot of guts. He's earned a lot of people's respect in the boxing community. Even more so now. He had respect, but now he even has more respect. And I think his future's at 140, and I wouldn't be surprised if he took a couple tune-up fights and then got right back into the swing of things with a tough guy. I don't think he's going to stay out of the ring long. I don't think he's going to, you know, let this beat himself up. I think he fought the best that he could against a very, very, very strong 140-pound guy who can not only, you know, who showed the same amount of toughness, but can bring it just as hard as Molina can bring it. And even though he failed that test, I don't think we've heard the last of him, and I think he'll be back. I think he's going to learn a lot from this fight. I think he learned he can compete with a borderline, you know, even elite fighter at 140. So I think his future's at 140. I wouldn't be surprised if we seen him in a fight at 135 again before that. It's possible, but I don't see it. I think he's going to stay at 140. There's already talk of about him fighting Mauricio Herrera, which I don't think he should take right out the jump after this fight. But
no, he shouldn't.
He shouldn't, but that's not my call. I mean, that's Goosen's call and his call. But I think he should take a couple of tune-ups against some overmatched guys, get some confidence back, and then jump right back in there. If he takes a couple fights and then comes back and fights Herrera, I think I wouldn't mind it at all, because I think he's going to be an in-demand fighter. He's a TV fighter. He's a fighter people want to see. He hits you and he gets hit back. No fan loses when you see a fighter like that. Listen, even Matthysse, he's that type of fighter. He will always be on TV because of his style.
And quickly for Matthysse, after the fight, he says he wants another rematch with Garcia. I don't know. I think if Garcia is right, should they fight a rematch, I don't see anything different to happen from the first fight. Call me crazy here, but I wouldn't mind seeing Matthysse, who I suspect is having issues making 140 pounds. I wouldn't mind seeing him move up to 147 and taking a big fight there. Him and Porter will be a terrific fight. Him and Thurman, I think, would be a terrific fight. Him and Broner would be a very good fight. Your thoughts on that? Am I wrong? Am I off base with thinking that Matthysse should maybe seek a fight at welterweight instead of trying to seek a rematch with Garcia? Even though Garcia didn't look good in his last fight.
No. I think for Garcia, why would you even entertain a rematch? You beat Matthysse convincingly. There's no reason to fight him again. I mean, unless there's something, you know, unless Matthysse does something drastic, like annihilate Mauricio Herrera, and then Matthysse can come to Garcia and say, "Well, look at what I did to Herrera. You couldn't even do that to Herrera." And you see what I'm saying? That's the only way I think a rematch will happen. Even then, I don't know if it will. I think Matthysse should move up because he did look like you could look at the pictures for the weigh-in. He looked a little drained. I think he's getting closer and closer to making that move to 147. He's just outgrowing the weight class. He's not. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, that man is a very, very in-shape guy, but he's just growing. He's just growing out of 140. 40, and he's probably going to move up soon. And there's fights for him there that that will be very marketable and very fan friendly, and he'll win a couple, he'll lose a couple, but that's Lucas Matthysse. I think
I forgot to mention the dangling carrot out there. A big all-Argentina matchup with Marcos Maidana, win or lose against Floyd.
Yeah, I think that fight is still out there, even though, it's so funny. Maidana always talks about, oh, he did my tattoo for me, and we're cool, and there's no beef between us. I'm sure if there was enough money there, they would fight.
Absolutely.
No doubt. Because even though I was looking at it, Maidana was like, "Oh, I'm wishing luck to Matthysse." That's always Argentinian fighters. They always have each other's back, no matter what, no matter the case. They always support each other when they fight. But I think if there's enough money there, I have no doubt they would fight. And even if they are friends now, they would definitely fight.
Yeah, so let's move forward to. And let's get through this bout quickly. Omar Figueroa, WBC lightweight champion, fought Jerry Belmontes, in which I thought were going to be a decent fight because there's a rivalry there between the two. But in watching the fight, I'm sorry, I was bored by it. A lot of times when I watch fights, I won't turn. Even during the 1 minute rest period, I won't turn because I'm interested in what the cornerman says to the fighters. But in this fight, not only did I find myself switching channels and watching NBA playoffs during the break, a couple of times I turned while the fight was going on. I was disappointed in both fighters, particularly Figueroa. And this fight raises more suspicions and more questions about him. Again, am I wrong to be so disappointed in this fight, which I figured Figueroa would win, but I think it would be a good fight. But in looking at it, it was just like, come on.
Oh man, I think that was the worst fight of the year.
Where was the fire from either guy?
Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. Jerry Belmontes, that's how he fights. That's just who he is as a fighter. I've seen him numerous times, and I know how he fights. That's the way he fights. He's a very, very awkward guy to fight. And I said that I thought, even last week, I thought he would give Figueroa a tough fight. I didn't think he would be that tough now.
Do you think he won? Because I did.
Who?
Belmontes. I thought he beat him.
I think he won. I think he won 115, 113. I didn't agree. I didn't agree with that 118, 110. I don't know what that judge was watching. That was a brutal scorecard. That was disgraceful. That didn't represent what me and you saw. Or
you know what? The California State Athletic Commission needs to call him. That needs to have him for a meeting and ask what he see.
Right. I thought it was a nip and tuck fight. I thought it was a very close fight. It could have went either way, but I thought Belmontes did enough to win that fight. Figueroa looked about as bad as you could look. Why would you even fight this guy? This man beat you 5 times in the amateurs, and then the 5th fight he made you cry.
Did you have to say that, kid?
Really? Like, why? No. The point is that was what was on TV, right? I'm not repeating what they're saying. I'm not making this up. I'm just repeating what they're saying. But the point being, he made the man cry. But forget that. That's not even the point. The point is, why would you fight this guy? If he made you look bad in 5 fights in the amateurs, what made you think he would make you look good in a pro fight? Like, really? Like seriously? Like, would you fight a guy like Belmontes who has a complete amateur style? You know it's an amateur style. That is an amateur style if I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
And he made Figueroa look like a class fool for 12 rounds. I mean, he made him look like a fool. He made him Figueroa look quite, one-dimensional. He doesn't. Let's just put it this way: Figueroa does not have a plan B whatsoever. No plan B. All it is plan A. I notice he doesn't go to the body like he should. That's one thing I did notice, because he couldn't slow Belmontes down at all.
And he's not good at cutting off the ring either.
Oh, he is, for a guy with that style, he does not cut off the ring very, very well at all. And we're starting to see that Figueroa has a lot of flaws, and I think, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care. Listen, Figueroa can say it's ring rust or whatever he wants and say, oh, he didn't want to fight. Oh, he's like, I'm sorry, but he ran away from me. Is that your grand excuse for why you look like shit?
Which begs the question, Kent. Why would he fight this guy? If he fought him so many times in the amateurs, you should have had an idea of his style. You should have known what he was going to present to you in the fight. Why fight him? And what happened was he made him look bad, and he made Figueroa's stock look worse.
I think he truly exposed Figueroa for what he is, a one-dimensional, plotting guy who can't cut off the ring and doesn't go to the body. He's been exposed for what he really is. Now you see why. Now you see why Belmontes was able to beat him 5 times in the amateurs. That style that Belmontes has would beat anyone in the amateurs. Anyone. Because that's what amateur fighters do. They go for points. They don't worry about, going in there and getting a knockout. That's why a lot of guys like Figueroa's style go to the pros. They never succeed in the amateurs because they're not looking for points. They're looking for knockout. Belmontes succeeded in the amateurs because he was looking to score points. And that style he took that style all the way to the pros, and he makes guys look bad. And I'm going to tell you right now, Jerry Belmontes will probably not be on Showtime anymore. Why would you have the man on Showtime anymore? He just blew up the one guy you're trying to push as one of your stars, and he destroyed him. He made him look like a class fool on premium cable. I would not have Jerry Belmontes on premium my network ever again even in a opener. Because more than likely there's no reason to put him in on a premium cable network anymore to destroy one of your fighters. He just finished destroying Will Tomlinson, and that was a guy that Golden Boy just signed, and he made Tomlinson look bad. Same thing, and he got and Belmontes won a wide decision in that fight. So did you honestly think what's his name, Richard Schaefer, that you didn't think the same thing would happen when he fought Figueroa? That was bad matchmaking. A big boo to their matchmaking, because you should never make a fight like that. I don't care who you are. I don't care what. If you know that Belmontes is a spoiler and beat this guy 5 times in amateur with that god awful style, you would avoid trying to make that fight. That was a complete brain fart. That was a brain fart by Richard Schaefer and Al Heyman and the Watsons, and they blew it. They completely blew it. They just got their guy exposed. They got this guy so exposed. Hell, I truly think that Linares has a very good shot of beating him. Seriously,
I've said it before. If he can avoid the hard shots of Figueroa, Linares outboxes him.
Oh, easily. I do not see anything to suggest that a boxer, that anybody that has at least some boxing skill would have trouble outboxing Figueroa. Figueroa has been exposed. I mean, people can say whatever. Oh, he just had a bad night. He had ring rust. Blah 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 blah. No, he was exposed for his limitations as a fighter, and Belmontes just created the blueprint. Now everybody's going to want to fight Figueroa. I'm sure the line is always around the corner, up the street. Geez, it must be miles and miles and miles to the amount of guys that probably want to fight him now, because he's been exposed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Figueroa looked terrible, and I don't know what else to say. I really don't know. I don't mean to go on a rant, but this was absolutely terrible matchmaking, terrible everything on Golden Boy's end, and I don't know what you do to Figueroa to get any of that back.
This was absolutely a case of bad matchmaking, and it made his fighter look bad in the end. You mentioned Linares. Imagine, given what Belmontes did to him with that style, imagine what someone like Miguel Vasquez would do to him.
Oh my God.
Imagine what somebody like a Richard Abreu would do to him. And I want to move on because that was such a bore. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Forget Crawford. Crawford would box the fool out of him. You mentioned Linares. I think Gamboa would beat him as well. And again, Figueroa, you were right. He was exposed as a guy who's limited, who has a lot of things to improve on, and for him to be even close to being thought about as an elite fighter. I want to move on to the heavyweight championship bout that took place this weekend as well. Wladimir Klitschko, the guy who's been the man for the longest at heavyweight, fought in Germany, defending his title against Alex Leapai. In short, easy work by Klitschko. We talked about it last week. You said Leapai had no shot. That certainly proved to be the case. Klitschko did what he wanted with him until he finally decided to, hey, let's end this matter. So let's knock him out. And that's what he did in round 5. Again, easy work by Klitschko.
Oh, this was a proverbial mismatch when the fight was announced. I love how people criticize Klitschko for making this fight, saying, "Oh, he's just handpicking another bum to fight." Only problem is the WBO mandated that he fight him. It wasn't like Klitschko had a choice. Do you want the man to drop the belt, the title in the garbage just to satisfy you? You're not going to do that. No. Why should he? He's going to defend on all comers. That's what a champion does. That's what the best fighter if you're the best fighter in the division, that's what you do. You fight all comers, no matter if they're overmatched or not. Your biggest threat, overmatched, you fight them. This is what he did. Klitschko went out there and he fought him, and he dominated him. He made Leapai look like what he was, a guy that had his career night against a guy that was superior in all facets in Dennis Boytsov. And he got his career moment and got a title shot, which will probably be his last title shot in his entire career. World title, anyway. I don't know what he does, after this, but I'm sure his payday was quite substantial, and he could probably retire on that. That being said, Klitschko dominated. He used the jab effectively. He landed the hooks. He landed the big shots. He toyed with him for the first 3 or 4 rounds, and then in the 5th round he just said, "I got to get this guy out of here. I'm done with this." And he just took care of business, knocked him out, and that was it.
Let me break in and give some stats for the fight to show you how much of a one-sided domination this was. Klitschko outlanded Leapai 147-10 in total punches. Klitschko landed as many jabs, 67, as Leapai threw in total punches, which was 69. Landing 31 of 49 punches in round 5. While Leapai landed none of the 10 punches that he threw. That's all-time historic kind of domination right there. You're not going to see that again, regardless of division.
Yeah, that shows you right there how much of a no-hoper Leapai was. And I'm going to tell you right now, Leapai's a nice guy, class guy. He believed in himself, like any fighter should. And he came off as a real class dude, and I knew he didn't have a chance. But you know what? I really liked the guy. I mean, he seemed like a really, really good guy, and he wanted an opportunity, and he believed he had a shot in this fight. And most of his followers knew he didn't have a chance, and it showed. He was nowhere near the level of Klitschko. Nowhere near the level of Klitschko. Not even on a B level. He's not even a B level heavyweight. He's probably more like a C level heavyweight that happened to have his career moment against a guy that should have dominated him, and that was it. there's nothing more to say about the fight. It's just that Klitschko beat another guy, his 16th title defense. And I love some of the comments after the fight. I mean, you go on Facebook and a couple of these social networks and you get some of these dumb morons that make these comments like, "Oh, he's the worst champion ever," and I'm like, really, a man who makes 16 defenses of the title and hasn't lost in 10 years, he's the worst champion ever, really? That just shows you just don't like the guy. I understand if you don't like the guy's style, you think he's boring or whatever. I understand that, okay? But to go on and just hate the man just because he's not what you want him to be, or he doesn't fight like you want him to fight, or you know, he doesn't fight the guys you think he should fight. Well, let me tell you something. He's fighting everybody that he can get in front of him, and he's beating them comprehensively. The fights are not even close. He doesn't lose. He barely loses any rounds, and he's a top-level fighter. He's a world-class fighter. He's a world champion. He's a dominant champion. He's a gentleman. He's everything that you would want a fighter to be. And if you don't like that, that's your problem. But the man is a great he's going to be remembered as a great champion. Unfortunately, the era is weak, but that's not his problem. He just goes in there and beats guys. So anybody who's going to go on there and hate on him, it's getting old at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. A lot of the backlash against Klitschko, particularly, and I'll say this, particularly here amongst us Americans.
Not American.
I think there has a little undertone there of the fact that he's not American. I tell you, and I'll go out and say it right now. I think if Klitschko was American, they eat him up. They love him. Dominating like this, they would absolutely love him. I'll say that now, and I'll hold on to that stance because look, the same guys, the same folks, many of them who bash Klitschko,
bashed Lennox Lewis.
Right. They bash Lennox Lewis. They bash other fighters. They bash Joe Calzaghe for his competition and whatnot. All the while, they love other American fighters who held on to their belts for a long time. And then nothing was said about them, even though they fought some suspect competition. I'm not going to put out any names, but I think...
I'm going to just say this. Some of these guys love Joe Calzaghe. I hate Joe Calzaghe, but love Roy Jones. Hypocritical, wouldn't you say?
So for me, I think there's a bit of xenophobia going on here in terms of the backlash against Klitschko. And again, if you disagree with me, sure to respond, but do so like you got some sense, because as Ken said last week, we don't deal with trolls. So let's move forward and talk about Klitschko. Rumor is that he might fight Pulev next. I'm also hearing that Klitschko wants to fight the winner of Stavern and Areola, their rematch. A lot of talk about Deontay Wilder as well. Who in the heavyweight division right now do you think can give Klitschko, who's dominant, any chance? Any good? Who do you think right now can give Klitschko a good fight?
Kubrat Pulev. I don't think he wins, but I think he gives him a good fight. I think he's probably the one guy that could really give Wladimir a run, like a good go at it. And I think simply because Kubrat Pulev has the skill, he has the size, he fights similar to Klitschko. I mean, but I just don't think I don't think he has nearly, even though he has the amateur experience and the pedigree, he doesn't nearly have the experience Klitschko has in big fights. And I think Klitschko would beat him clear. It wouldn't be a domination. He beat him clearly, and I think, for what it's worth, Pulev would give him a good go. He'd give him a real honest effort and a good fight. I think that's the only guy right now that would give him a good fight. I don't think anybody else gives him a good fight. I'll be honest with you. I don't even think Deontay Wilder gives him a good fight. I think he dominates Deontay Wilder. I wouldn't be surprised if that went only 3 rounds or less than 3 rounds. So anybody who thinks that Deontay would go in there and blast Wladimir Klitschko, we're out. I'll tell you why I don't think it happens, because Deontay Wilder hasn't fought anybody or been in the ring with anybody near the level of a Klitschko. He hasn't even been in the ring with a level of even an Areola, a Stavern, a Pulev, a Fury, even David Price, or Chisora. So for anybody to say he would blast Klitschko out, you got to check yourself, because that ain't gonna happen. I think Klitschko would dominate Wilder. I think he'd dominate everybody else. But I think Pulev would give him an honest, tough fight, a good fight.
As critical as I've been of Deontay Wilder, I think a potential fight with Klitschko, I think he would have a shot because of the power and power alone. The only way he would beat him is by knockout, and it is if he was to swarm him and land the big shots, because if he doesn't, he's going to get knocked out, because I still have questions about Wilder's chin as well as his opposition. But overall, I agree with you. I think Pulev, because of his style, because he's more consistent, I think he's a better overall boxer than a Wilder, than a Fury. He would give him a decent tussle. He would lose, but I think Wilder, in terms of just the power, the potential there, his big shot, but overall, in terms of beating him by decision, I agree with you, and I will go with Pulev. Let's move to the boxing news for a minute, segment of the show. Big news of the week. News broke yesterday. Andre Ward, who's trying to free himself from Dan Goossen in his contract, lost a court battle with lost the court battle as the California State Athletic Commission. The arbiter, and let me look his name up right quick. His name, Andy Foster, the arbitrator, Andy Foster of the California State Athletic Commission, ruled in favor of Goosen and declared that Goosen's contract with Ward is valid until 2016. This is the second time that Ward tried to break free from Goosen. He tried in 2013. He failed in that bid. He was unsuccessful this time yesterday. Given that news, in Ward, let me add, Ward's team, his lawyer, and his advisor, his lawyer, Josh Dubin, and his advisor, James Priz, just basically released a statement about basically dissing and bashing Dan Goossen and talk about the process was unfair in their part. But I will ask this question: given how Ward has now failed twice in attempting to break free from Dan Goossen, at this point, do you think he should just go ahead and mend things with Goossen and try to fight until the end of the contract? Because at this point, what's there for him? He could try to fight, he could lose again, and at this point, his career is at a stalemate.
I think he just needs to shut up and fight. At this point, I think he needs to go in there. He needs to be a man. He needs to talk to Dan Goossen and tell him, listen, we've disagreed on the contract, but I'm willing to make this work. Okay? I'm willing to fight. Okay? Until the end of the contract. And can we work this out? And I'm sure Dan would oblige that, because that's the only fighter Dan really has outside of John Molina. So I think he needs to just shut up, fight, fight whoever he can get in the ring. If he's going to fight at 68, he's going to have to step out of Northern California. He's going to have to go to Europe. He's going to have to take some fights in Europe. No one is going to take chump change to fight you in Ontario, California, or
forget Ontario, California, Oakland. I'd be satisfied with him fighting in Atlantic City again. Him fighting in Las Vegas.
Exactly. No one is going to, listen, forget Ontario. Listen, no one's going to come and fight you for $300,000 or $30,000 or whatever amount, $100,000 and put up their belt in Ontario, California, in a chance they're going to lose it. That's not going to happen. No one's going to do. No fighter in their right mind would do that. I heard that they tried to get, they tried to get Stieglitz for a fight. They offered him $300,000 to put up his belt against Ward in Oakland or Ontario, one of those places, and they laughed and hung up. You honestly think these people are that stupid? They're not going to put up their belt come all the way out there knowing they're going to lose for that type of money. Okay? You're going to have to you're going to have to make a sacrifice. You're going to have to go to Europe and defend your belt. And I don't see why you would lose a suspect decision. You dominate most of your fights. I mean, what is the hang up? I mean, what are you worried about? Are you worried about getting screwed on the cards? You're not going to get screwed on the cards, because if you go and fight the way you normally fight, you should win easily. You should win clearly, not easily. I'm not going to try to talk him up as like that, like overdo it. But he would win those fights fairly clearly. So I don't understand what the hiccup is with that. And if you're not going to keep fighting at 68, you got to move up to 75. There's guys you can fight at 75, and you got to make fights. You can't keep sitting there living on the Super 6 and expecting people to keep remembering that. Time moves on.
Right. That fight with Froch was what, 2011?
Yeah.
The fight with Chad Dawson.
It was 18 months ago?
September 2012. People quickly forget that, especially in light of the way Adonis Stevenson just destroyed Dawson in one round last year.
Yes. So what Andre Ward needs to do is he needs to get off his ass. He needs to get away from the mic at HBO, because you're not. Listen, I don't mean to diss Andre Ward. I respect him as a fighter. I think he's a great fighter. I think he's one of the best fighters in the world. But number one, you ain't that exciting in the ring, and you certainly aren't that exciting to listen to on the mic. Let's just be real, and I'm being nice, okay?
I think he's a little bit better than you give him credit for.
Yeah, but I'm just pointing out that he doesn't have that big time charisma. He doesn't have that style to get people jumping and excited. So you're gonna have to get in the ring and fight as often as you can to get people to follow you. And try to be more appealing. That's what you're gonna have to do. People ain't gonna sit here and keep, waiting for you to fight. You're gonna have to get in the ring and fight. You have to fight. That's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You lost the 2 cases. It's time to move on and fight. Stop, and if you're gonna sit on the sideline and wait for the contract to run out, that's a poor strategy. If you're thinking about doing it, that's a very poor strategy, because people are going to forget. And you've built a lot of momentum, and it's been blunted in the last 18 months simply because you're just not fighting, and you want out of the contract, but there's no way out of the contract. So you're going to have to just suck it up and fight. Listen, you have a minimum of 6 more fights with Goosen at most. Maybe 7 or 8 if you decide to be a little bit more busy. I would reach towards more 7 or 8 if I was Ward. So he's going to have to get in the ring to fight. That's all I can say.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I agree with you. Now that the thing is over, now that the decision hasn't been in his favor again, I think he should find some way to mend fences with Goosen. And look, the dangling carrots out there for Ward are a fight with Shumanov at 175. Or a fight with middleweight champion Gennady Golovkin. Looks like Golovkin's going to fight Chavez Jr. Shumanov, his career is just a bit of a run as well, because he tried to get a fight with Stevenson. We know how that went. So, but with that being said, there's still fights out there for Ward. I wouldn't mind seeing him fight DeGale in, say, a Las Vegas or Atlantic City. I wouldn't mind seeing him fight a Jean Pascal in Las Vegas, or go up to Canada and fight him. I wouldn't mind Chavez trying to bogarting this attempted effort for Golovkin and Chavez Jr. to fight, and try to seek a fight with Chavez Jr. I wouldn't mind Ward fighting particularly George Groves, should Groves beat Froch in their rematch coming up at the end of May. So there are fights out there, but now continuing to fight this court battle, being on the shelf, the momentum he built coming off of his dominant win over Chad Dawson September 2012 is gone. Completely gone.
Yeah, okay, the last thing we remember of Andre Ward is this fight with Rodriguez, which was god-awful. You can't tell me you enjoyed that fight, because nobody I know enjoyed that fight. And it was a farce. Rodriguez didn't make weight. There was penalty points taken away for holding. It was just a terrible, terrible, terrible fight. And that's the last thing people remember about Ward. So he's going to have to erase that by getting in the ring and fighting as often as he can. That's it. There's no, you have to suck it up now. You tried to get out of the contract, it's done. You're stuck. You have to make this work.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do a wrap. Let's begin to wrap up the show by doing a preview of the upcoming bouts this weekend, and we all know what it is. A big time card coming up Saturday in Las Vegas. Floyd Mayweather returning to the ring to fight Marcos Maidana. Maidana, of course, beat Adrien Broner to win the welterweight belt last December in an upset. On the undercard of Mayweather Maidana, you have Amir returning to the ring against Luis Collazo. Adrien Broner fighting Carlos Molina. I'm going to come back bout for him. And Jalen, an interesting bout at super middleweight. Jalen Love fighting Marco Antonio Parabon. That's kind of a title eliminator bout. The winner's supposed to get a title shot. Let's focus on Mayweather Maidana. Again, Maidana beating Broner, Mayweather, top pound for pound fighter in the world at this point. Mayweather, the clear-cut favorite coming in, but I'm hearing a lot of people suggesting that Maidana could really give Mayweather a fight and has a better than decent chance of scoring the upset here. I think Mayweather would win. I think he's just too much of a boxer, too skilled. He will not make the foolish mistakes Broner did when they fought. Your thoughts on this quickly, and how much of a shot do you give Maidana against Mayweather?
A puncher's chance, which is probably about 15 to 20%. I really think that on paper it's a better fight than a con fight, simply because at least Maidana was coming off a big win against Broner. But I personally think Floyd is just going to be way too skillful, way too smart, way too crafty. He will take advantage of Maidana's crudeness. He won't be there to be hit like Broner was, and I just think he outboxes him to a clear decision, wide decision. I just don't think it'll be very much of a competitive fight. I think there'll be, I think a lot of people think, they all want to see Maidana do what he did in the Broner fight again. I think that's what it is, because nobody really gave Maidana boo in the fight. Not really much of a chance. So I think that's what people are banking on again. But I just think Floyd is just too skillful, too smart. He's not going to sit there and stand in front of Maidana and take stupid punches, stupid shots, and I think he's going to win a very comfortable decision. I just don't see where Maidana really does anything unless he lands a big punch and hurts Floyd. But I don't know if I think he's just too slow, and I don't think he gets there.
The issue for Maidana, I hear people say Maidana, he's tough, he got that big overhand right, he has this, he has that. The thing is that Mayweather, unlike Broner, Mayweather has a better jab than Broner. He uses his legs better than Broner. He throws better combinations. He goes to the body better than Broner did, and he's more disciplined in terms of how he attacks and his defense. He won't sit there and he's not lazy in there. He's consistent all the way. And I just think, again, the overall skill set and what Mayweather brings to the ring will be too much for Maidana. Let's talk about Amir Khan, who tried to get a fight with Mayweather. I think kind of made himself look stupid, made himself look silly. The attempts how far he went to try to get a fight with Mayweather. Mayweather, I believe, he saw that and kind of played him for a fool. Fighting Luis Collazo, who recently scored a second-round stoppage of Victor Ortiz. Look, Khan is the more talented fighter. He's faster. Khan can punch. He has better legs. But I don't trust Amir Khan. I don't trust him at all. He's too undisciplined in his attack. He's too hyped. He often fights like a guy who gets too hyped up We all know the issues with his chin. I just think that Collazo, at the end of the day, he not only has a chance to beat Amir Khan. I think that Collazo has a chance to stop Amir Khan. Am I wrong?
I think he stops him. I think he stops Khan. I've been, as soon as the fight was signed, I said Collazo stops Khan. As soon as the fight, I heard it was announced and it was signed. That's how I felt. I felt Khan was the guy. I mean, I felt like this was a bad fight for Khan, bad styles fight for Khan. Everything is wrong for this fight. Collazo's ultra awkward. Not a good guy to fight coming off a layoff. Just ask Victor Ortiz, who decided to stay down, mind you, even though Collazo made him look really bad. Ortiz chose to stay down in that fight. But the point being is, Collazo's not the type of guy you want to fight coming off a layoff. And I think for all of Khan's advantages, his speed, his boxing ability, his power, he throws it all away when he decides to stand there in front of somebody and he gets clipped. He gets hurt. And more often than not, he gets knocked out. That's where he throws everything away. He's not a disciplined enough boxer to stick to a game plan and fight smart. I just don't see, the only way I see him winning is if he makes an ultra boring fight, which means he outboxes Collazo, and then when Collazo lands a shot or gets into a position where Khan can get into danger, he holds on.
But see, I don't know if Khan has the discipline to do that.
I just don't know if Khan has the discipline to stick with that. And I'm just going to say, right now, I'm going to go with Collazo by mid-round stoppage. I just think he's ultra awkward. I think Collazo lands a lot of clean shots. He's busy. And eventually he's going to catch Khan on the chin with one of those shots. And I think Khan is going to get hurt, and he's going to go down, and he's not going to respond well, and he's going to get stopped.
Yeah, I'm not going to say mid-round stoppage, but I do fear that Khan will get stopped. Khan can beat him, but again, I just don't trust him at this point. Let's talk about Adrien Broner fighting Molina. Broner coming off again the loss to Maidana last December, fighting Molina. Look, a lot of people threw a lot of dirt, threw a lot of shade towards Broner, and justifiably so, but not only about how he fought, but in terms of how he acted. You know, the kid acted like a fool a lot of times, out of the ring and in the ring. But I'm going out on a limb here. I think he's learned his lesson. From what I'm hearing, he's been terrific in camp. He's been in the gym. He stayed in the gym. Him and his full beard looking like James Harden.
I heard he's pretty much for this entire camp. He's pretty much lived in the gym. He hasn't gone anywhere.
Look, even though Broner is the smaller guy against Molina, I think Broner will win. And I think he will win impressively. I think it's evident he has the skill set, the speed, the jab, the movement when he wants to, quicker fighter. He's pretty hittable. But I think Broner will look very impressive here.
Yeah, I think Broner dominates Molina.
He's on a mission.
Oh, yeah, I think he's on a mission to prove a lot of people wrong. I think he's very angry how he's been rudely treated since his performance against Maidana, and he kind of brought all that on himself. But he's very motivated in the gym. All I've heard is great things about him in the gym. I heard he's pretty much lived in the gym since going into camp. He's been disciplined. He hasn't gone out and goofed off. He's been sparring. He's been doing everything, his coach asks him to do. I've seen recording from various fighters in his camp, and he looks fantastic. I'll tell you this, he looks in fantastic shape.
Yes.
I mean, excellent shape. I mean, the best shape he's ever looked in his career. So, believe me, this lit a fire under his ass. This was a wake-up call. And I have no doubt that he's going to come into this fight with a lot to prove. And I think he boxes the holy hell out of Molina and gets a stoppage late. I think he's going to go out there. He's going to go out there and make a point. I think he's going to take the first few rounds, to get, to get into his groove. And then when he starts getting going, I think he's going to have a very easy time. I don't think Molina's much of a threat. Molina's been out of the ring over a year. This is exactly why the fight was made. And I just think, Broner outboxes him, completely clowns Molina, and gets a stoppage, late round stoppage.
Super middleweight contest happening between J'Leon Love as he's fighting, as he will be fighting Marco Antonio Parabon. Should Love win, I believe he's supposed to get a title shot at Bika, I believe it is. Quickly, Kent, before we shut down the show, your thoughts on Love and Parabon?
I think it's going to be a close fight. I think it's going to be an interesting fight because this is the first time I think J'Leon Love is going to be fighting an aggressive guy that will make J'Leon fight on the back foot. I think I'm going to lean with J'Leon by close decision, but I wouldn't be surprised if Parabon won. I wouldn't be surprised if either guy, or specifically, J'Leon won a Warder decision, because I think J'Leon personally, I think is going to be a guy that's going to make noise at 168 pounds once he gets an opportunity and gets a belt. And I think, for what it's worth, Parabon's come up the hard way. He's a little bit more battle tested. He essentially beat Badu Jack. He gave Bika a very tough fight. And he's a very, very tough guy to fight. He comes forward, he's aggressive, and he makes you earn anything you get against him. So I think it's going to be a close fight, and I would edge J'Leon in his boxing ability, but it wouldn't surprise me if Parabon won, based on output and being slightly busier.
And I think on that note, we're going to shut the show down. I know on the last podcast, for instance, on the last YouTube show, we would mention, have a few words about Shinzuki Yamanaka, his latest title defense, as well as Kiko Martinez and Humi Hasagawa. I apologize, we're not going to do that tonight because we're running short on time. But if you go to dailymotion.com and do a quick search of Hizumi Hasagawa and Kiko Martinez versus Hizumi Hasagawa, you can find those fights there and watch for yourself. So we apologize for not talking about them.
I want to mention, please watch those fights, and if you have comments on that fight, please let us know. Please let us know your opinion on the fights, and we'll definitely respond to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Just shoot a message to us on the Pound for Pound Boxing Facebook page and Twitter page, by that matter. So with that being said, again, we apologize for that. As we shut the show down, Kent, give the folks the information where they can find you with Talk Boxing.
You can reach me at facebook.com/kent.ayers.1. You can contact me there. I talk boxing. Let me know you see me on the show. I don't usually add, just anybody. So unless it's a fighter or somebody I really know that in the social media scene in boxing. So if you see me on the show, if you want to add me, let me know that you see me on the show.
Yeah, and absolutely. Y'all know the deal. Regular followers of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report and new followers, again, as I said earlier in the show, you can check out the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Two places you can go mainly. You can go to the blog page, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. You can go to the podcast page, p4pboxingreport.podomatic.com, where you can find past episodes of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. The blog page, you can not only find past episodes of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report podcast, as well as YouTube show. You can find links to where to find us all over the internet, all over social media, Facebook, Google+, Tumblr, Twitter, Podomatic, YouTube, the email address, Pinterest board, RSS feed, as well as a link to donate your account, donateyouraccount.com/P4pboxingreport. Be a friend, be a pal, be a buddy. Donate your Twitter account and support us and support the show and support boxing. With that being said, on the next episode of Pound for Pound Box Report, we will do a recap of the Mayweather Maidana bout, the Collazo Amir bout, Broner Molina, as well as Jay Leon Love and Marco Antonio Parabon. And side note, a bonus. We're going to do a bonus episode. The plan is to do a bonus episode live immediately following immediately at the conclusion of Maidana and Mayweather. We plan to do a live show on YouTube. I will put out the information on later on Twitter and on Facebook and on Google Plus on where you can find us and what time we'll be on. Again, we're scheduled to do a live. We plan on doing a live post-fight episode of immediately following Mayweather and Maidana. And with that being said, I want to thank you, Kent, for being again on the show with me this week. For my co-host Kent, I am your host Michael, and this has been another episode of the Pound for Pound Box Report. You guys have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.